Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 875, August the 22nd, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Boy, this week's just flying right on by, is it not? Okay, we got some good news for you here today. Let's go ahead and get started. Well, it looks like Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray is battling Judicial Watch tooth and nail to try to keep them from getting 13,000 pages of Strzok page documents. So Judicial Watch has been battling this for a while, and of course No Shit Sherlock Ray is battling back. He is saying that he needs, telling the court that he needs 2 years to process the FOIA requests. In other words, after the election. Total stonewall. What do you think that No Shit Sherlock Ray is afraid of? I mean, if there's no problem with these 13 pages of documents from Strzok and Page, why is Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray so hell-bent on holding on to them? Why doesn't he want us to see them? After all, we own them. We own those documents, Chris. Not you. Not the Department of Justice. Not Strzok and Page. We own those documents, and we want them. And we want them now. No Shit Sherlock Ray needs to be the next person shown the door. Certainly hope that Trump is keeping track of this. I know he does read the Twitter account of Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch, and hopefully he'll hear this, and at some point he needs to pick up the phone or call No Shit Sherlock Ray into his office and tell him to comply. Even better yet, Trump needs to set up his own inner office executive branch operation, which will determine what documents get declassified and released. Take it out of Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray's hands, and then let's see if he uses the Department of Justice to sue then. Because then he'll probably have to answer to Barr. Need to keep the pressure on, but yeah, Judicial Watch is doing good work, and we're constantly battling No Shit Sherlock Ray. I'm sick of him. I was sick of him on day one. He needs to go. He's part of the coup plot. We also have Judicial Watch battling on another front. Here, he's been battling for a very long time, trying to get to the bottom of the Rotten Reverend Clinton's email server scandal. And he's making a lot of progress. And the judge in that case, Royce Lamberth, has been pretty agreeable to Judicial Watch and has been moving in their direction. So he's been going through all this, and they have been successful in getting former Clinton administration and State Department officials to sit for interviews. Some of them have been written, some of them have been in person, depositions. And of course, what's at issue now is they finally made it to the top. And Judicial Watch had gone to court with a motion to get the court to grant their request to depose the Rotten Reverend Clinton. The Rotten Reverend Clinton to be deposed. But just on the eve, one day before the court hearing, which was supposed to be today, the 22nd, on the 21st, the court is notified by the Rotten Reverend Clinton's lawyers that she doesn't want to sit for deposition. So now you can assume that tomorrow, or today, as you're watching this video, August 22nd, that when Judicial Watch shows up to file, they've already filed the motion, but when they show up to get the judge's ruling on whether or not they're going to be able to depose Hillary Clinton, and so far this judge has been favorable to Judicial Watch. Now they're going to have Clinton's attorneys, God knows how many, in the hearing trying to fight that. So it'll be very interesting to see who wins that battle in court today. And we'll be following that very closely, and we'll see what happens. But again, this is Judge Royce Lamberth, and he has been fairly, I would say he's been fair to Judicial Watch and granting most of their motions to depose these people involved in not just the setting up of the rotten Reverend Clinton's email server, but also hiding, covering up, playing hide and seek with Judicial Watch throughout this entire process. The judge has already lambasted State Department and government DOJ attorneys on several occasions. So my thoughts are, at this point, just how things have gone up to this point, is I think that he's going to reject the motion by the Reverend Clinton's attorneys, and he is going to say that she has to sit for a deposition, or at the very least, a written deposition. So we'll certainly be following this closely to see where this goes. I will definitely keep you posted on this one. What's the rotten Reverend Clinton afraid of? She should have no problem sitting for a deposition if, in fact, she has nothing to hide, right? I mean, she said she likes transparency, right? We'll see. She'll lie like a dog. Well, we're learning that the mooch spent this past weekend in Martha's Vineyard, and he was there along with the Clintons and the Rothschilds. Oh, that's right. The Clintons and the Rothschilds hanging out in Martha's Vineyard, and of course, who shows up? The mooch. Pretty sure that's no accident. He's probably been working for the rotten Reverend the whole time. He supported her campaign and Obama's, and even raised money for Obama. He's CFR. He likes to go to Davos. What a hack. Well, check this out. Tell me where you've heard this before. This is off Paul Sperry's Twitter account today. This is Paul Sperry from Twitter, August 21st. Where have you heard this before? Here it is. Paul Sperry, Twitter, August 21st. Hillary Clinton is the mastermind behind the whole political dirty trick and frame-up of Trump. Let me say that again. Paul Sperry, August 21st, tweet. Hillary Clinton is the mastermind behind the whole political dirty trick and frame-up of Trump. Where have you heard that before? He goes on to say, funny that no one is asking her about her role in the dirtiest of dirty tricks, nor Obama about his role in it. Well, I certainly expect that Durham's going to make his way to the rotten Reverend Clinton eventually. How could he not? Eventually, I'm telling you, eventually the day is going to come if Durham is the real deal, and he's really doing a real investigation. The day is going to come in the not too distant future when he's going to have to walk in Barr's office and say, Mr. Attorney General, I've reached a point in my investigation where I need to interview Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. That day is likely going to come if Durham is actually doing a real investigation. You can't do a real investigation of Spygate without speaking with Obama and the rotten Reverend. John Solomon was on Sean Hannity. I'm sure you might have seen it on, I believe, Tuesday night. And he's talking about the fact that there's a good chance that we could see 10 important releases of documents very soon. Maybe even before the IG report comes out. Now that would surprise me because normally they are released, these types of things are released after an IG finishes his report. Although, usually they come out actually after the IG goes and he puts out his report, then he usually goes and speaks to the House Judiciary and then the Senate Judiciary. That's how it normally works. And then he releases documents. But it's possible that they could release them beforehand. The documents that Solomon is talking about would be the following. Number one, that would be Chrissy Steele's confidential human source reports at the FBI. Oh yeah, I would certainly like to see those. And what would we be looking for there? Well, the most important thing, there's a lot of things to look for there, but probably one of the most important things I think a lot of people are looking at and thinking about would be if in fact we were to find out that the relationship between Steele and the FBI wasn't just a one-way street. In other words, it wasn't just Steele coming in as a confidential informant or a source and giving information to the FBI, but rather it may have been a two-way street where the FBI was feeding him information. Now, if we find out that the FBI was feeding information about their investigation, especially something like Operation Crossfire Hurricane or any type of counterintelligence operation or anything like that, if we find out that the FBI was feeding Steele information, that's a really, really big problem for a lot of reasons. And it would totally blow, like many other things, the Russian collusion delusion completely out of the water. But I think that's pretty much already the case now, just with what we have. But if we find that the FBI was feeding Steele, that would absolutely have to result in indictments. There's no way around that. There would be no way that you could get around that. Even if Barr didn't want to indict anyone, he would have to. You could not let that one go. You can't do that. Okay? So we'll see, but a lot of people are, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but certain people I've heard speak on the subject who can't really talk about it, like Nunes and Trey Gowdy, who are not allowed to say, but they have seen some of this stuff, and they're suggesting, let's put it that way, they're suggesting that maybe that could be the case. The next thing would be the 53 House intelligence interviews. This would be the interviews conducted by Devin Nunes' committee when he was the head of the House Intelligence Committee. And he did 53 interviews. And so we would certainly like to see those. There'll be a lot of lies. There'll be a lot of lies that were told by those people in front of Nunes' committee. And that's why he is sent up to the Attorney General some months back, requests for investigations or interdepartment investigations into perjury, lying to Congress, because he knows a lot of those 53 witnesses lied repeatedly, including Mr. Potato Head. The Stefan Halper documents. Yes, indeed, the Stefan Halper documents, the Fat Man. We need to find out, and we would find out if these documents are released, who he was working for and exactly what he was being paid to do. Very, very important. We have a pretty good idea who he was working for. Obviously working for, being paid by the DOD, but that was his cover, his CIA cover. But he also has dual citizenship, and he spends half the year in the UK. So I assume he was working for both British intelligence and US intelligence, because they were working together on this plot. But there's a lot to learn about the Fat Man. Next will be the October 2016 FBI email chain. That's very, very important, because in October of 2016, there was a lot of things being talked about within this small group of FBI officials, which will no doubt, when we, if in fact we are fortunate enough to see this October 2016 email chain, we will find that the FBI basically, in a nutshell, exposed themselves as being part of a coup plot. But that's kind of the big picture. But more importantly, I think that these emails will reveal that they knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They weren't duped. They weren't duped by Christopher Steele. They knew who Steele was working for. They knew it was political opposition research. They knew it was bullshit, or at least was at that point, they knew it was not, at the very least, it was unverified. But they went ahead and pushed the plot anyway. I think a lot could be revealed from that. It could be very, very damaging. not just to the FBI, but probably others as well in the orbit. Number 5 would be the Page and Papadopoulos exculpatory statements. Now, we've already pretty much, it's been leaked by now. Trey Gowdy and Mark Meadows have both said that, for the most part, what we're going to learn, at least I haven't heard anything about the Carter Page, but we have heard about Papadopoulos when he was questioned by Stefan Halper, or when Halper was trying to get him to at least agree that it would be good for Trump to get hold of the emails that the Russians had hacked, allegedly, that when Halper said that to Papadopoulos, he came back to him and said, hey, that would be illegal, that would be criminal, it would be treason, and I would never, ever do such a thing. Never. And I think that that is what they're referring to. And of course, that would be exculpatory evidence, and that would not have been presented to the FISA court, and that's another reason that the criminals would be, of course, indicted. Next would be, of course, the Gang of 8 briefing materials. Now, the Gang of 8 briefing materials are very interesting because Brennan briefed these individual members, briefed these members of the Gang of 8 individually. Now, it's believed, and I think that this very well could be shown if we see these documents, and Devin Nunes has already suggested this, that Brennan didn't give the same briefing to all 8. And that, in fact, Devin Nunes might have gotten a much different type of briefing from Mr. Potato Head than some of the others, like Mark Warner on that Gang of 8. Yes, I'm dying to see the briefing Brennan gave Warner and the briefing he gave Nunes. Something tells me they're a lot different. And if that's the case, that's another problem for Mr. Potato Head. The Steele spreadsheet. What is the Steele spreadsheet? In case you haven't heard. 2 months after using the Steele material to get the FISA on Carter Page, the FBI actually did go in and try to verify the Steele information. And 95% of it could not be verified. And they ruled it was pretty much a bust. It was worthless. It was garbage. It was fake. But by that time, they had already launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane and gotten a FISA warrant on Carter Page based on the Steele stuff. And it's literally a spreadsheet, which John Solomon has seen. And he said it's a riot. Can't wait to see that. I love spreadsheets. Yes, let's see that. The Steele interview from Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. Yes, we would like to see the Steele interview from Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. But I think we all know pretty much what it's going to tell us, because Steele had already given 2 other depositions, which we have gotten quite a bit from, and we already know what he said. Steele cannot go change his position. He's already locked in. If he changes his position, then the other 2 depositions he gave under penalty of perjury, those cases could be not necessarily reopened, but could be revisited, and the attorneys, the opposing attorneys in those 2 cases, could then have grounds to drag Steele back into court and with the judge, and the judge could see that Steele is given another deposition which is different than the ones he gave before, and therefore he would have to explain himself. He would likely have proven he perjured himself, and it would probably open the door for more legal actions against him. And one of the people that took legal actions against him happens to have a boatload of money, and could very likely keep Steele in so much legal trouble, and keep so much of this legal stuff going on that he could probably bankrupt Christopher Steele in his effort just to try to fight the charges, which may in fact be a strategy that Alpha Bank, the 3 guys from Alpha Bank, would use to retaliate against Steele. So I don't think Steele can change his tune. He's already sang the tune twice, and he basically stayed with the narrative on both of those depositions. I can't imagine that he would change his tune here. And his tune up to this point has been that, hey, I told the FBI this shit was bull. I told him it was unverified. I told him it was raw intelligence. I told them I didn't go out and seek the information. It came to me. I told them I didn't speak to a single one of the sources, that I used collectors. Actually, I used intermediaries who used collectors. Steele is at the very best third person removed. The next thing would be the redacted sections of the third FISA. Oh, yes. Those redacted sections of the third FISA, those 21 pages they do not want us to see. The Devin Nunes and Trey Gowdy says are game changers. Game changers. Oh, yes. We need to see that as well. And finally, here's one of my favorites. The records of Allies' assistance. Records of Allies' assistance. This would tell us what foreign governments were involved in the grand conspiracy plot and what their role was. So yes, these would all be good things to get out. And Barr is in charge now of declassifying and deciding on what to release. Now, if in fact this is Barr's decision, and I would have to think it is, to release the stuff, it's a very wise decision on Barr's part to do so. And let me explain why. If you remember, about 2 weeks ago I did a video and I said, you know, for Barr, the difficult thing is not unraveling the crime. Barr knew that this was a massive criminal conspiracy on day one when he walked in the door, because he had been looking into it and following it as a private citizen for the same length of time that we all have been. And he's got friends inside the DOJ and FBI, so he probably knew more than we did. That's why he took the job. And he didn't appoint a prosecutor to get a report. If he just wanted a report, he would have given it to the IG. If he just wanted a report, he would have told the president maybe he should set up a presidential commission. Or he would have kicked it back to the Congress and suggested they set up a 9/11 type or John Tower type commission. That's not what he did. Barr appointed a prosecutor, a U.S. attorney, a prosecutor. So he didn't appoint a prosecutor to get a report. You appoint prosecutors to get indictments. So Barr already knew that he was walking into a pretty big deal. A pretty big deal. And as I said in a video a couple weeks ago, the difficult part for Barr is not going to be unraveling the crime and figuring out what happened. It's going to take some time. He's going to have to interview a lot of people, look at a lot of documents and things and such. But he generally knows what happened. He just needs to put it all together and get the evidence. And that's why he put Mr. Durham in that position, to put that all together and put together the case for prosecution against the criminals and the criminal conspiracy. And I said that is the easy part. That's the easy part for Barr. He's done many, many, many criminal investigations, as has Mr. Durham. And so, again, knowing what they knew before they even started, this is not what you would consider a very difficult case to do, and it's because the perpetrators, the criminals, left so many breadcrumbs. They left so many emails, so many texts, so many documents, so many witnesses. They left so much evidence to incriminate themselves because they never thought it would be investigated. The rotten Reverend Clinton was going to win, and this was all going to be swept under the rug. So they didn't do a very good job of trying to cover their tracks. Once they failed, then they determined the only thing they could do then, a last-ditch sort of Hail Mary, was to go for the insurance policy, the coup, to try to get Trump taken out, using the Congress to do impeachment. They knew they had no crimes, but they know that impeachment is a political process, not a judicial process or a criminal or a legal process. It's a political process. So this was their last ditch, and that's going to fail as well. So putting the crime together here is not the difficult issue, as I said 2 weeks ago. The difficult part is, how do you expose this to the world, to the country, to the citizens of this country, expose such a massive, unbelievably sinister criminal plot, a massive criminal conspiracy. How do you do that and then lay indictments on some very heavy players and some very powerful people, knowing the political climate that we live in? Barr knows immediately, as soon as he comes out and gives his report announces there's going to be indictments and various things and such, that immediately the entire media complex will turn on him and the Trump administration. They will accuse him and Trump of being dictators and fascists who are using the power of government to go after political enemies, and it's just like some sort of fascist dictatorial regime. They'll stir up the crap. They'll try to start civil insurrection. They will use it to try to destroy Trump, to try to destroy Barr. It will turn into a gigantic political shit show. Barr knows this. So I think what might be happening here is that Barr, in lieu of what he believes will be the end of his investigation, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, he is going to go ahead and start releasing a lot of very damning evidence. He's going to put it out there in the public, for the public to read for themselves, and for honest media outlets, of which there might be one called Fox News, but there'll be a lot of YouTubers, a lot of independent media, and they'll keep reading through all these documents and seeing the incredible evidence laid right in front of their eyes of the criminal conspiracy that did in fact happen. And it will get out there, and it will have a couple of months for it just to go out there and bubble and percolate long enough for people to get a basic grasp of what did happen, the criminal conspiracy. It will allow people to it's kind of like warming people up. It's kind of like softening them up. It's kind of like giving them the chance to get this information and let it sort of percolate for a few months so that it can like sink in. It also allows time for the media battle to take place, and because there's no indictments, no accusations being made at this time, the media can't really come after Barr and Trump and start accusing them of being fascist and going after political enemies and all this, because there's nothing happening here, no charges, no statements or anything like that. They're just simply documents. Documents. They're unbiased. A document is not biased. It's just, it is what it is. It's just, here it is. This is the document. This is the conversations that were had by these people. This is the activities that took place within these people or this agency. This is what happened. Here's the evidence. So by putting the evidence out there, it softens up the general public, and it disarms the corrupt media, so that when Barr comes out and finally finishes the investigation, he's already laid the groundwork. He's already disarmed, for the most part, his enemies and the criminal media, and he's already sort of warmed people up and gotten them prepared, because at that point it won't be a big shocker when he comes out with Durham and announces indictments. In fact, people will be expecting it. They'll have read the evidence. They'll say, uh-oh, this evidence is very, very damning. And a couple months will go by. People will say, man, I can't believe with all that evidence that no one's been indicted. People will be pulling their hair out like us. We'll be like, wow, how about no indictments? It's all there. I mean, what do you need now? We've got it all. It just takes time to work through it, because I think Barr wants to make sure he dots all his I's and crosses all his T's, so that these people can't wiggle off the hook. Now, many of these people, and the reason they're so freaking arrogant, like Comey and Strzok and Page and Clinton and all these people, the reason they're so arrogant, in my opinion, is that they believe that they will not be indicted, and they believe they will not be indicted because they believe they have a trump card, which is they can simply believe they can sit down with the U.S. attorney or prosecutors and say, look at them and smile and say, well, you know what? Yep, I did all that stuff that you're accusing me of. Yep, I did every bit of it. And you know what? I did it with the advice, the knowledge, the consent, and in fact the order from the President of the United States. The President of the United States knew everything I was doing. It was cleared from the President himself. Therefore, I was just acting on what I was told to do by the President. Now, all these people think that because they can use Obama as leverage, knowing good and well that we do not throw former presidents in jail no matter what they do. May ruin his legacy, may embarrass the hell out of him, may certainly hurt his income potential for the rest of his life, although he's probably got enough to last him for the rest of his life from what he's already earned, and he'll still always have people who will support him, so, but believe me, at the very least, it's going to be very embarrassing for Obama when it comes out that he, in fact, was a major figurehead in this entire plot. and a lot of these perpetrators believe that because it was being directed by the White House, coming from the executive branch, that therefore their asses are covered. But what they're going to find out is that Barry-O looks out for Barry-O. That's right. Barry-O is not going to cover their asses. Barry-O is going to come out and say, well, I was certainly briefed on a counterintelligence operation, but that was based on the fact that there were Russians trying to infiltrate the Trump campaign. That's what I was told. That's what I was told. You see, Barack Obama's not going to cover their ass. He's going to play dumb. He's going to say, hey, of course I had to approve a counterintelligence operation. The president has to approve a counterintelligence operation, especially if it involves a sensitive issue like this did, and I took it very seriously. But I was told, and I was shown certain evidence, that possibly people within the Trump campaign were being infiltrated by Russians, or were trying to reach out to Russians, or something like that. And I had to protect our democracy. I had to protect the country, and I certainly approved these investigations. I certainly did. But he's going to say, but what I didn't know is that they were lying to me. I thought Strzok and Page and Comey and McCabe and the whole crew, I thought they were giving me the straight poop. But as it turns out, they were not. I didn't know that those were CIA agents or working for British intelligence. I was told they were Russians. I didn't know that they were fake intelligence agents pretending to be Russians. I didn't know there was a coup plot in play. I thought this was a legitimate investigation. I was duped too. I'm a victim as much as Trump is. That's what Obama's going to do. If these people think he's just going to cover for them, they're nuts. Obama is going to cut these people loose. I guarantee it. He is not going to cover their ass. So when they try to use Obama as their leverage, thinking that, well, they're never going to indict the president, and that's true, and all I have to say is that Obama knew everything. All the orders were coming from the executive branch. They all knew what we were doing, and therefore, we're okay, because it was coming directly from the executive branch that we could do these investigations. But this is the problem they're going to have, is Obama is going to say that he was duped as well. And in fact, I fully expect Comey to say that Brennan was duping him. I fully expect to see a circular firing squad. I fully expect to see, at some point when all the indictments come down, that the excuse that these people are going to try to use to get off the hook is everybody's going to point the finger at someone else. Strzok and McCabe are going to go, wait a minute, Brennan and Clapper, they told us that they were Russians. We didn't know that those were CIA agents posing as Russians. No, we were duped. Everybody is going to point the finger at everybody else and pretend they were duped. Comey's going to be like, hey, I thought it was all on the up and up. I thought it was all legit. I thought all this intel I was getting was good stuff. No one told me that Steele was, biased. No one told me that Steele didn't believe this stuff was true. No one told me that there were fake counterintelligence operations being run. I didn't know. I thought Mifsud was straight up Russian. I was told he was working with the Russians. You see, this is what they're all going to try to do, which means it would fall right back into the lap of McCabe and Strzok and Page. But it's likely at this time, from what we hear, is that Page is likely turned. And if that's true, then she's going to bust up that whole argument. She's going to come clean to save her neck. And she's going to throw McCabe and Strzok under the bus, just like they tried to do to her. And eventually, everybody will start trying to throw everybody else under the bus, and it'll be a circular firing squad. That's what I see happening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.